Hello, everybody. Welcome to Comic Book Syndicate, and this is your co-host, Michael, and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell. Yeah, today we're going to be taking a look at the newest Sony feature release, Madam Web. That's as much enthusiasm as I can muster.
Yeah, without laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so what could be said about this that hasn't already been said? Not much. But let's just ignore...
What review done?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, let's ignore everything else that's going on. Everyone knows the anticlimactic box office results, the pathetic, delusional hopes and dreams of Sony, all those...
Spinning this off.
Yeah, come on. But let's just talk briefly and say that we reviewed the first appearance of Madam Web on our podcast, Here Comes the Spider-Cast. I think we both enjoy the Madam Web character in the comics and the cartoons, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I grew up really liking this character and not even really have without having any idea of her in the comics, because I grew up watching the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and that was like one of my first, if not the first, introduction to Spider-Man for me. So
okay, right.
And she's pretty integral to the part to the plot of that, like throughout all of the seasons, throughout like many episodes, she kind of like pops up into Peter's life. So I enjoyed this character. Do I think that this character could necessarily hold her own movie? I don't know. Not with how Sony's doing it, that's for sure.
I mean, theoretically, any character can hold their own movie if a good writer takes a hold of the project. Like, as we saw with James Gunn and Guardians of the Galaxy, I always throw that in people's faces, because before that movie came out, no one on Earth cared about Groot or Rocket or Star-Lord, any of those characters, right? And so, yes, it can be done. But what Sony's chosen to do, because Sony could do anything, right? They could do what Marvel does sometimes.
Yeah.
Just find a talented indie creator and let them go crazy, let them do what they want. Now, I am not going to pick on the director of this film because it's her first feature, and I don't know anything about her. However, I will just say that all of her previous experiences is in television. And my first impression from watching this movie is, oh, this is an episode of a TV show.
Right.
And
yeah. I'm always reluctant, especially with these Sony gigantic productions, to like put all of the blame on the director.
Sure, right.
Because I know that Sony really, like, the executives at Sony and the producers and all of these people with the money, they're the ones with their hands in the mess of things, messing with things, tweaking, demanding reshoots, demanding certain things be put into the movie so that way it could fit their larger goal to make money and get more merchandise and spin-offs and things like that. So yeah, this movie was awful, but I don't think there's necessarily one person to blame.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I should say I didn't realize she has previous Marvel experience. She directed an episode, at least one episode of the Defenders, which was not
great, but
no. But still, the point
is the Netflix shows on the whole, I think, are pretty good.
Yeah, but that show I couldn't finish, so I'll just say that. Anyway, we do have to point out there's 7, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 credited writers on this film. That's a very bad
credited too.
Credited, you're right. We don't know who else was standing over people's shoulders and blah, blah, blah. We don't even really need to summarize the plot of this. We'll just say that if you haven't seen the film, this is a very extended origin of how Madam Web gets her powers, which again is fine. But since I've only read the 80s appearances of Madam Web and I've only seen her in the cartoon, and the cartoon's pretty consistent with the comic book, right? Like, she's just there and that's it. I don't know if this origin comes from any comic books, and if it does, I apologize. But This
I
is
don't
what.
think so.
Yeah, okay, so it's an original story. It's not a horrible. Oh boy, there's so much to say because it's not just whether or not this is a good story. It's whether or not because we have to comment on the fact that once again they're building on a Spider-Man villain without a Spider-Man.
Right.
So we have a race of spider people living in South America. We have, oh, by the way, the bad guy who was never named in this, who we didn't know who it was. Oh, that's Ezekiel from J. Michael Straczynski's run. Okay.
Right.
So with the whole spider totem nonsense, which okay, it was fine. It was fine. But again, we have a guy running around in a Spider-Man, essentially a Spider-Man costume, even
Hmm.
though there's no Spider-Man. So even though I did really like the Smallville TV show, unfortunately, Smallville kind of started that trend of we're going to introduce Superman's entire supporting cast, but with no Superman. All of his
Hmm.
villains and blah blah blah, and then it kind of goes on from there. And then the TV show Gotham with all these Batman villains, but no
Right.
Batman. It's the same problem, and we have it here. But knowing that, let's just try to focus on the actual quality of the writing. So, okay, can we talk about the plot? The
Uh,
plot was Josh, what's your impression of that's the plot of this movie?
um, yeah, it's essentially the bad guy has a vision that these three young women in the future are going to have spider powers and kill him. So he wants to kill them before they get their powers. And Cassandra Webb, Madam Webb, uh, she has these clairvoyant powers and she can also kind of see the future. So she is stopping Ezekiel from killing them. And that's it. Like that's everything that happens. Like I don't even feel like I'm missing much of the plot by just saying that.
Right,
Like
right.
nothing else really happens. There's some like shoehorn stuff in with Uncle Ben,
Hmm.
and we're getting like hints that Peter Parker is being born. Very on the nose hints. But it doesn't make much sense. Like it doesn't even make sense to introduce these three characters as three different versions of Spider-Woman. Like
No,
like
you're right.
like there being three of them, there being them having spider powers, like nothing, they don't even get the spider powers in this movie. They don't get their
No,
costumes.
it's
It doesn't make much sense because as an audience, we don't have any connection with Spider Woman yet.
you're
General
absolutely right.
audiences,
You're
right?
absolutely right. Yeah.
Maybe more so us as comic book fans. It was cool to see like Sydney Sweeney in like the
Yeah.
Julia Carpenter type costume, right? But or Julia Cornwall in this
Yeah, I don't know
movie
what the
for
change
some
of name,
reason.
but yeah.
But for general audiences, they don't really care about these characters. We don't really get
No.
enough time with them to enjoy them.
Hmm.
I think that they did a pretty good job with what they were given, and they had like some fun moments, like when they go to the diner and stuff like that, and they work well off each other. But we don't get enough time with them, or even give them enough to do to actually enjoy them together and grow with them. And I think the same thing with Madam Webb's powers. It She can see like a couple of seconds into the future, and then she goes to Peru to talk to some guy, and all of a sudden she has powers to be connected to every single person ever all at
Yeah.
once. Like
Well,
it doesn't, it's not well explained.
no,
We also don't see her learning how to use her powers,
no, no.
right? Like she's always like, whoa, it like every origin, it's like she can't control it. She doesn't know why it or how it's happening. And then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, when she needs to use her powers, she's using them like she's used them her whole life. She's
That's
picking
true.
up like debris and she's like throwing at like things that
Hmm.
are flying at them, or she's like, okay, he's gonna come around the corner in 3 2 1, and then she like lights a firework or something. Like there's
Hmm.
no moments where we're seeing her develop or like use them. We don't even see what happens and then her figuring out how to overcome it and redo it again properly.
Well,
Like
yeah, that's a good point.
like there's no like Groundhog Day moments where she's like having to go through it and then repeat it and fix those mistakes. We're just shown the fixed version, and we're supposed to believe that she had these like visions and she was able to fix it.
You know what? That's a good point. But to be honest, how many superhero origins do go that far? Like, do they ever really go that far? Like, even like the Star Wars movies don't really. I guess they in Empire Strikes
You
Back they did. Yeah.
you also see Luke Skywalker training in the Millennium Falcon. You
Yeah.
see him like you see all of the you see him lifting up the rocks. Even in other Spider-Man movies, you see him figuring out how to use his web or developing his web shooters. You see
Okay.
him when he first swings, he hits a wall and fall. You
That's
know what I
true.
mean? Like
Okay.
you see
Okay.
him
Good point.
learning how to use these powers. We don't get that at all with her. She's
Okay.
just like randomly gets visions and then all of a sudden she's able to like use them no problem, and she's like using the like I'm connected to everybody power out of nowhere. Like it was
Right.
just I just wanted some moments with her developing that, or
Sure.
like giving us reasons why she can do it, because it's an interesting concept, but I just don't think it's executed
No.
well.
Eh, Now the other thing is is that everything you just described, it's almost like okay, so with Smallville or
Mm.
Batman Begins or whatever, we have a sort of pre-origin version of a very popular character. With this movie, we have a pre-origin of characters no one has heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we? It's like you just said. It's like why didn't like we don't actually see these girls get their powers? Why didn't we just do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why did we do that movie?
Or why not have Ezekiel have a vision that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is going to kill him in the future, and he wants to kill Peter Parker as a baby
Yeah,
before
yeah,
he grows up to get his powers. So
sure.
then you also have that connection to Spider-Man. We already know who he is.
Hmm.
So it makes sense for us to root for Cassandra Webb to stop him because we want Spider-Man to survive and we know who he is. So
Sure,
then it could be again this like Groundhog Day repeating the actions to save Peter,
sure,
save him in one day and having to like repeat it over and over again or something, right? Like
sure.
I don't know, it's and then you have that connection to that real character.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know, there's something is not right, like
well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
the other thing too is that it's clear that they really thought this was going to lead to this franchise.
Yeah.
So obviously it would have been sort of a Charlie's Angels type thing. You're going to have these three superheroes that have spider powers, and then Madam Web would be like the Charlie, just the voice, or the
Hmm.
person who's going to give them the mission and see the visions and blah blah blah. But oh, okay. So I don't know how to do this because let's just talk about the
Characters,
characters in the
yeah,
film
okay.
and then kind of go from there. So look, we have to talk about Dakota Johnson. I
Yeah,
actually don't know much about her. I never saw 50 Shades of Grey. I might have seen her in one or two movies.
she's a pretty good actress from what I've seen her
Sure.
in. Um, I love her in interviews. She's very straightforward. Even with even with this movie, she's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not super interested in it. I was told I was going to be in an MCU movie, and I'm
Right.
not in an MCU movie. So,
The thing
um,
is in this film,
mhm.
I mean, I'm assuming this is a little bit of her own real personality, but she comes off as very kind of like aloof and kind of a little bit cynical and kind
Mhm.
of too cool for school. And there are moments in the movie where they play off that, like the scene in the movie where she's at the was it a
The
baby
baby
shower?
shower,
That
that's
was actually
great.
pretty
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, it was
I
pretty
think
well
that's
done.
genuinely the best part of the movie.
I think you're right. You're right.
That they're guessing, and that's also like again, she's just realizing that she has powers, so she's having
Yes.
these like deja vu moments.
Right.
and she is like messing up the guessing the baby name and all this stuff. And I think that stuff is really well done, and is maybe the only moment in the movie where we're like seeing her develop as a character, like seeing who she is as a character. Everything else is so superficial and surface level.
That's a good point. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's unfortunate we didn't have more of that, but I guess okay, so they used her as best they could, but on top of the character being kind of the way she is, I felt like Dakota Johnson, tying into what you said, was just so phoning it in,
Hmm.
right? Like she's just like, whatever, just let me
Yeah.
get through this frickin' shoot. She just didn't care, you know?
Hmm.
So that was a little bit awkward, but it's kind of hard to judge her because I mean, she's playing, first of all, she's playing Madam Web, who in the comic is a elderly woman, and Dakota Johnson is not an elderly woman, so they decided to go a different route. Fine. So
Yeah,
it's, it's kind
that's
of
fine.
it's kind of hard to judge whether or not she's doing a good job, but she wasn't terrible. She just wasn't really into it, you know?
Yeah, thinking about her outside of the role and
Hmm.
just thinking about this character, Cassandra Webb from the movie, she's fine, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But at times it does feel like she's phoning it in. That could also be because of the script. Um, if the pattern continues with like Sony, like knowing how much of a shit show the shoots are for the movies, like
Hmm.
Morbius or Craven, who's been delayed
A
countless
year.
times
Oh
now.
my God. Yeah.
Um, uh, they might not have even had like a full script, or like they might have been doing
Yeah.
so many reshoots or rewrites while filming that she was like lost, you
Right.
know.
Right. Right.
But yeah, her performance isn't fantastic. I think she could have been a great Madam Web in a better film. Honestly,
Right.
frankly, any of these characters could have been better in a different film.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because yeah, and as we go down the list, we're gonna see none of them are terrible. So
Yeah,
Sydney Sweeney is Julia Cornwall, who's actually Julia Carpenter in the comic
Carpenter,
books.
right?
I thought she was great. I mean,
Yeah,
I haven't really seen her in much, but she seems like a great actress. She's very popular, and
yeah.
I thought for what she played, I mean, again, I don't know much about Julia Carpenter in the comics. I only saw her a few times, but I'm attached to her because that's who Spider-Woman was when I was growing up.
Right.
So I've always been attached. And let's just remind our listeners, she had the black spider costume before Spider-Man did.
And she does have it in this movie as well.
Yes,
Well, in a
in
flashback
the visions, in the
or
flashbacks,
flash
yeah.
forward or whatever.
So I thought she was fine.
Yeah, she's
She was
great.
great, yeah.
She was definitely the most like unique two of the three
Mm,
like younger characters.
sure.
She was like more reserved and quiet and more of a
Right,
goody two shoes. And so she really kind of brought a lot to the dynamic of the three of them, I think, because
right.
the other two I think were pretty similar, where they were rebellious, and they were rebellious in different ways for sure.
Sure.
Like one of them was more from like a rich family, one was kind of like from a poorer family, and they were but still, she definitely stood out between the three, I think,
Mhm.
personality wise. um I don't
Yeah.
know, I honestly don't know if there's much else to say about her or her character, because
No.
nothing else happens with them
No.
in the movie.
No, not I mean none of them. I mean, so then we have go
Yeah,
ahead. Oh,
I don't think I could. I don't think that there is, besides them standing in the forest together and
uh-huh.
then walking to the diner, those three characters don't do anything else in the movie.
No,
They
not really.
like there's
Like not anything on they don't push the plot themselves. They don't do anything on their own. You're right. They kind of just
yeah,
follow Cassandra around.
yeah.
And yeah, and so with that said, let's briefly say Isabella, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Isabel
Merced,
Merced as who is she even playing?
Anya
Anya.
Corazon.
She's fine. Yeah, she was good. She was appealing too, obviously.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, there's nothing else to say about her. And then there was Celeste
Celeste
O'Connor.
O'Connor, which
Who,
who I don't think I've ever heard of her, but she was also really fun.
yeah, she was good. Again,
Um,
yeah, like if this was the pilot of a TV show then there'd be other episodes where they could develop them and get better. But in this, there wasn't much for them to do, right?
Yeah. I don't even know what I know her. Like, I don't think I know her from anything.
No, I don't either. No, but she's fine.
But
Yeah.
yeah, she's good. Yeah,
Okay,
fun
now,
character, whatever.
so now, they always say a villain makes or breaks a movie. Well, here we have Tahar Rahim as Ezekiel, who we still don't know what he talks like because his voice was overdubbed for the entire movie.
The entire film was
And
ADR'd with him. It
I looked,
was
so here I actually Googled it, and it says
uh-huh.
here, it says the lines you hear in the movie are him speaking, or are Tahar Rahim speaking. So,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it is speaking.
So it is him then. Okay.
What? So then,
So
okay.
so they're just completely 100% ADR'd because I can guarantee you the plot changed from them filming and then them editing. And they had to redub what he was saying to change what he was saying. Because every time he would talk, he would see his mouth open and it would cut to the other character listening to him. It was,
Yes.
and then when it was him talking, his mouth was moving, but those were not the words that were coming out of his mouth. It was something completely different.
You
It
know
was
what?
awful.
So there's a big report here that says that yes, it's pretty clear that it was overdubbed because of plot points that kept changing through reshoots and editing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. But it was, the thing is I personally hate looping, and I don't like seeing actors with overdubbed lines, because to me it's always a bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a sign that, like, I remember I started to notice it when I'd watch X-Files, and I remember, once this one scene, Mulder came across like a dead body or an injured person and then ran into a stairway and down some stairs. Then Scully came down the hallway, saw the same person or body, looked up, and then we heard the overdub, Scully down the stairs, and then she started to run because the editors or the director or the producers thought, oh, how would Scully know where to go? We better overdub this line by Mulder. But it's idiotic, because why would he be barreling down these stairs and then have the foresight to shout back at her down the stairs? It's just stupid, right?
Yeah.
So in this movie, they should have just figured out a better way to do it. I don't know. I mean, what can I say? I don't know what they had to go through for these reshoots or this overdubbing, but it must have been pretty brutal when everyone is noticing how bad his dialogue is, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
It's rough.
It sounded like on top of the mix. It sounded outside the mix. It wasn't natural, and it didn't sound like his voice, but apparently it was his voice. That's all I can say about that.
We saw this movie together, and I could not hold my laughter in.
Right.
When anytime he talked, I was like covering my mouth laughing because it was so badly dubbed.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really rough. And honestly, his character is nothing as well.
No.
He is there to have the characters run from something. Other than that, he doesn't do anything clever. He doesn't have any other motivation besides, I want to kill these three girls. It's so awful.
What about his awesome line, they're teenagers now, but in the future? Oh, clever.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Not really bad. Again, we don't even really see him acting in this movie because he's like, we're not hearing what he's actually saying. So I don't want to say he did a bad job in this movie, because I don't know. I never saw a performance from him.
That's a good point.
You know, so he was definitely the worst part of the movie, but I don't think that was his fault, right? No. Like, that's not on him at all. I'm really hesitant to say anything bad about any of these actors, because
it's just not their fault.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's out of their hands.
All Sony's fault.
I think the only other character really worth talking about would be Ben Parker, played by Adam Scott.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, let's talk about him.
I like him.
He's obviously a great actor.
Yeah, he's great. And honestly, even in this movie, he was really good. I think in the scenes he was in, he played really well off of Dakota Johnson as well. She's very much like the straight man, and he's kind of a little bit more relaxed, easygoing, and like the dynamic between them, like their short little conversations were great, I thought. Some of the best parts of the movie, like when they're sitting around after work eating like Chinese food and they're kind of just having the back and forth, and then even at like the barbecue they're kind of having like fun conversations. That all those moments are really good, I think.
Right.
It does fall apart when he has to talk about his nephew, his unborn nephew, and all of that nonsense.
No.
But anytime outside of that, he's maybe the only character that feels like a character, like a real person.
That's a good point.
Out of the whole movie.
And you know what's funny? I don't know much about sorry, what's his name again?
Adam Scott.
But I just watched Step Brothers for the first time.
Oh yeah, he plays like a really fun villain in that.
Outrageous in that movie.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah. He's great in that. He's probably most well known for Parks and Rec.
Okay, sure.
So yeah.
Which I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah, he's in a lot of really good comedy series and movies. So
right.
Yeah.
So let's quickly mention also before we also have Emma Roberts as Mary Parker. I don't know much about Emma Roberts.
Oh yeah.
Other than that she's Julia Roberts' niece.
Oh okay, yeah. I
and
guess
Eric
that
Roberts'
makes sense.
daughter. Yeah, she was fine. She was okay.
Mm-hmm.
What can you say about her? Right?
She's in like a scene. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess she's closer to the end too when she's giving birth to Peter Parker, but.
And then there's also and I wish I could pronounce her name. It's Zosha Mamet, who's David Mamet's daughter. I've only seen her in interviews. She seemed fine, but she had nothing to do, right? She basically just fed exposition to Ezekiel, so there wasn't much for her to do there.
Yeah, she did more than Ezekiel in the movie, I feel like, to track them down and do, you know what I mean? Like he just kind of stood there and played with this little spider.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, but you know what? I now as we were watching the movie, I was trying to be fair. I'm always trying to be fair to these movies. I do have to say, I actually thought the cinematography was good. There was nothing bad about it. It was fine, you know?
Yeah, it was. There was no point in the movie where I couldn't see something because it was so dark, which is pretty rare.
Which is in these days
a movie, yeah.
Oh, and it also says here he was the director of photography for Spider-Man: No Way Home. There you go.
Oh, okay.
So he's no slouch. And and the thing is I actually there's a lot of modern cinematography I don't like. I mean, everyone talks about how films are so dark. Not only dark, I don't like films that are too grayish and washed out. I'm really sick of that. And this movie had some color and some depth to it. So I do appreciate, because, you got to give, even a bad movie can have a good technician working on it. The editing was fine. I guess really it comes down to the writing in this film.
Yeah.
It was just a mess. It was a weak plot and confused reshoots and rewriting just made it kind of a big mess. And again, the fact that Sony really thought that this was going to be the birth of a new kind of sub-franchise, it proves, well, they're idiots, right? I'm sorry, they're idiots.
It's really, really rough. Yeah.
Like
I'm trying to think of like things that I liked about it. I really like the setting. I mean, it's New York, but 2003 New York, I think it's smart. They did a lot of like cool things in the background to show that it's set in 2003.
Right.
The music choices, normally I think these movies overdo it.
Sure.
With like really shoving it down your throat like pop music, but the few times that they use pop music in this movie, I think it's for the better. Like the diner scene, I know I keep talking about this, but I feel like it's the only part in the movie where it's an actual scene, right? But they're dancing to Toxic by Britney Spears, and then they all die, right? and then
Yeah,
it rewinds, and Madame Web has to do it again and save them this time. And when she ends up back in the forest, and then Toxic starts playing again on the radio in the car, it feels like eerie the second time you listen to
sure,
it,
sure.
almost, right? And I thought it was a really cool way to set it up. And the editing too was great. It was the maybe one of the only times too in the movie where I was like, how how are they going to get out of this?
Right,
Because
right,
in
right.
my head, it was like, how is she going to get there before he does to get them out of the diner into the car and run away? And it turns out he shows up before she even gets there, and
Sure.
she crashes right through. So
Yes.
yeah, one of the few moments where I was like surprised and uh was like excited to see something new and
Sure.
something happening. So
And there was a few, to be fair, there was a few eerie moments with her powers, not a lot, and it wasn't
mm,
used to its fullest extent. But there was a few pretty good moments of her having her little deja vu, whatever
mm,
you want to call it. They were fairly well done, not great, but there was some decent moments in the film. So
yeah.
I guess go ahead.
Yeah, the one moment too, I really loved it, and then it pulled it right away from me. It was like she was kind of like down about not being able to do anything with her
Mhm.
powers, and like she was very headstrong about how you can't change the future or whatever. But then the pigeon hits the window and cracks it, and then it dies,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then she replays it again, and she's like, whoa, that's so weird, the glass is gone. She opens up the window, and then the pigeon flies through and then lands, right? And you see her kind of like have
Sure.
this moment. She's looking at the pigeon, and she's like, oh my god, I can change the future. Maybe you didn't have to die. And
Sure.
then she says out loud, huh, maybe I can change the future. Maybe you didn't
Yeah.
have to die. And
Yes.
I don't even
Yes.
think you see her say it again. It's just like 80 yard in, and it's like,
That's shit. It's garbage.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I understood what you were trying
Yeah.
to to show me. You didn't have to tell me it as well.
Great.
So
That's a great point.
yeah,
And I mean, again, it's like it just proves that Sony thinks we're stupid. Sony
yeah.
thinks its viewers are stupid. So again, they deserve their failure. What can I say, right?
Yeah,
Like,
unfortunately.
apparently this movie cost around, let's see the budget here, 80 million, but they spent another 60, 70
Oh,
on
okay.
million on advertising. So they'd have to make like 200 million to make their money back, if not more, if not double that. So that's not going to happen. This movie's bombing. It's only made 54 million. They still have to do Craven, but and then there's still going to be Venom 3. So there's still two more movies to come out
Yeah,
of.
they're filming Venom 3.
Okay.
Will at least that will be a success for them, because the Venom movies have made money.
Sure, sure.
So at least they won't lose anything. Uh
But I think
yeah, I don't
to me
know.
it's kind of like DC. DC does have successes, but they can you can only have so many bombs where at some point you have to pull the plug and just
Yeah.
reboot. And so at this point, to me, Sony either has to reboot this universe or just give up and sell the rights back to Marvel and let Marvel.
They would be better off selling it, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. So
Ugh.
so the thing
Uh,
is, again, like I don't hate this movie. It's just so tired, you know?
mhm. Yeah.
It's just so done.
Which is so funny because we have never ever gotten a Madam Web movie. We haven't even got
Yeah,
any of these
and we're
Spider
sick of
Women in
Madam
movies, but
Web,
we're like,
right?
ugh, I'm sick of it already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's just the formula. Like the formula,
mhm.
you know, they've been talking about superhero fatigue for a few years now, and this movie is just another example of that, right? Like
Yeah,
they can't like a lot of people have said this felt like a superhero movie made like 18 years ago, and it's true. They could have gotten away with this in 2005 and 6 when they were making Daredevil with Ben Affleck and Ghost Rider with Nicolas
maybe.
Cage. But the fact is now the standards are higher as they should be.
Mhm,
And people are just like, no, we're not going to put up with this garbage anymore. We're not going to waste our money, you know? There's so
mhm.
much competition. Why would we spend our money on this? So,
Yeah, it doesn't make
fail.
sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Um, what I know that they want to make money and they want to make all these spin-offs and make this huge universe, but I don't understand how they think they're going to do it with these movies. I don't understand how they think that these can be a success.
Well, because they're because they think we're stupid.
Right.
They literally sit there and go, well, Marvel's pumping out stuff and they're making money, so we're gonna do it. It's just like the Dark Universe and the Godzilla
Mm,
universe and all these other ones. Like they think, well, they can do it, so we can do it. But they're doing it, of course, all wrong. That's the
mhm.
problem, right? Because I don't know, it's not easy. Not as
I
easy as it
just,
looks.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I just don't, yeah. I don't see how Craven the Hunter is going to be their breakout success, you
It's
know?
not,
Like
yeah.
how's Morbius going to be a hit?
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, I agree. But but on paper, you go, oh my God, okay, so Spider-Man villain played by what's his name? Jared
Jared
Leto,
Leto.
who won an award and on paper, all these things, there are people that go, yeah, it's gonna make money, let's invest some money, but
Mm,
we all know that it was always gonna fail, right? We
right.
all knew that. So what else can you do? Yeah. So that's about all we have to say about Madam Web. Again, I didn't hate it. You know what? If they made another movie with these same actors, I would still give it a chance because I liked all the actors. I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
they won't though, because as they've
No.
already said, there will not be. Someone has predicted there will not be another Madam Web film for 10 years. First of all, there's never going to be another Madam Web movie, but
Probably
right,
never, yeah.
ever. They tried, they failed. Oh boy, Sony, what can you do? We'll see. Maybe big changes are coming for Sony, just like they happened for DC. Like I said,
I hope so.
yeah,
They do need somebody to step in and be kind of like the creative control
James Gunn,
over.
yes, just reboot.
Yeah, just bring him back over here too.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe you can do both. Exactly. Oh boy. Okay, so anyway, that wraps up our review of Madam Web. We will be back
Yeah.
for what's the next movie review? I don't even know because this year is going to be slim pickings.
Yeah, that's true. It might be Craven.
Oh, okay. Because well, there's going to be Deadpool 3,
Oh, that's in the summer, right? I
Craven.
don't even know when Craven was pushed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this summer. But
Um, it's looking like the tentative release date is August.
okay.
So Deadpool I think will be out before Craven, but
Okay.
like a month or so.
So we'll be back for that, and if you're lucky, we'll be back for Star Wars: The Phantom Menace because we've
Oh
already reviewed it twice,
yeah.
but we want to review it again. So
Let's do
we'll
it
be back
again.
for that, and be sure to join us on Tape Crusaders reviewing classic superhero films, and Slam reviewing DC superheroes. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, you can find all of our stuff over on our website as well at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. Yeah, all of our podcasts and stuff, we're trying to make them all video format now. So you can actually see the stuff that we're talking about, comics and things like that. So leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about the stuff we're talking about and keep in touch.
That's
We'll see
right.
you next time.
So until the next time, see you later.
All right.